Welcome and hello from Boulder, Colorado, Boulder County, actually. As you likely know, our home burned down in a wildfire and we're rebuilding it. So we're in temporary quarters. And that's not as big a deal as the fact that we can't travel because of the COVID and really, really miss my good friends in China. That's a sad thing. Anyway, so I like to start with a little science lesson. You may wonder where the stuff we're made of came from. Our skin, the plastics, everything. The Big Bang, which created the universe about 13.8 billion years ago, only made hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium. I'm just messing with this light here. And so where did all this other stuff come from? Well, this was a mystery until maybe about 30 years ago when physicists figured out that our materials were created in an explosion of a star called a supernova. And the way stars work is they have this force of gravity that is inexorable, and it is fighting against the heat and of thermonuclear fusion, hydrogen fusing into helium. And when big stars get near their end, gravity wins. And when that happens, the star explodes in what's called a supernova. And it's in these explosions that we are created. So for sure, in our neighborhood of our solar system, probably about, 10 billion years ago, there were a dozen maybe supernovae in this area, made enough material for it to coalesce into our sun and our planet and us. And so we're literally stardust. And this is one of my favorite images. This is a remnant of a supernova in 1054. It was observed and recorded in China, the only place that I'm aware of. It's called the Crab Nebula. It's called a nebula because at the time these were named, nobody knew what they were. So why am I telling you this? It's because we're all stardust. By the way, if you're wondering about my shirt, it says physics is the law. Everything else is a recommendation. Another version of this is physics is the law. Engineering is just recommendations. So kind of a little fun thing. I'd like to answer your questions. And I thought what I would do is show you the questions on the screen. You can read them yourself in Chinese, might be easier. And so I have written under here the response in English. And so someone will have to translate this into subtitles on the video. So you can read this. It's about the lying flat culture. I didn't know what that was until I looked it up. And I'm not even today completely sure about the social interrole. The workforce is being exploited, but not want to be. Well, nobody wants that. How to motivate young people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's interesting to me about this is I think this is a much bigger problem than China. I see it here in the US. Every other building has help wanted signs in the front. And what's happened here is that there were a lot of low paying, lousy jobs, and people were kind of habituated into doing them and decided they didn't want to do them anymore. I see companies in the US are giving like Fridays off. There's big incentives to hire people. And I think a bigger international problem is what's called the Gini coefficient or wealth inequality. I don't know. I know this is very big in China as well. I don't know as much about how it happened there as I do here. Here, this was the direct result of the Federal Reserve Bank bailing out the wealthy and leaving the poor to hold the bag. Historically, this doesn't go on forever. I don't know, but I have certain sympathy with people who are young people who are having trouble getting excited about going to work. And as I read about the lying flat syndrome, it's about people living in urban centers that prices are going up. When I was in Shenzhen recently, people told me the price of an apartment in Shenzhen is higher than Manhattan, which is one of the most expensive places to live in the US. And so I always like to solve problems by addressing unfortunate realities. people are reluctant to do that. That's most unfortunate. The unfortunate, so I'd say you acknowledge the unfortunate reality about what you can and cannot provide. I think the most important idea is our deepest needs are needs to feel appreciated. And I've learned doing this work that gestures are more powerful than words. Uh, Google, a US company, had learned this very well. They have lots of things that don't cost a lot of money that make employees feel valuable. I've visited several of the Google office places before the virus, and they have things like coffee companies like Starbucks in there with free coffee for employees. I've had lunch in the company cafeteria. It's very good. There's no cashiers. They have clever little meeting rooms around the place. They're like renovated vans. And they have an exercise room. And very cleverly, they have on the treadmill a platform for people's PCs, and people continue to work while they're exercising. So I'd say lots of things you can do to help people feel appreciated at work. And that's our truly deep need. I don't know how dire the situation is with the finances in China. I know it's a problem, but I think what you can do is definitely make real progress with these expressions of appreciation that are simple and probably not too expensive. The common goals you ask about, that's a really important thing. And there's a exercise that Sharon should know how to do very well for you. It's called the shared interest exercise. In the workshop slides, we do it as individuals, but I've done this many times with groups. And basically what you do is you divide people into the two groups. And if you can, you have a little cross-fertilization with the people, if it makes sense. And you separate and ask the one group, what does the other group want that I can want for them also? And you write these on flip charts. You take these up and show them to everyone collectively and ask the group, do they get it right? Is this something you want? And then at the end, you can carry this to the next step, and you can make requests of the two groups. The employees can make requests of the management can make requests of employees. And when agreement is made, you write down the agreements and sign them in an operating document. Very simple thing. And I just, as an example, I did this in 2019 when a group was in very high conflict in a Volkswagen plant. I forget, Guangzhou, I think is where it was. I'm not positive. And it was Chinese in one group and Germans in the other. And they almost came to tears when they did this exercise. So this is a very simple way, a very important thing to do. If you're having conflict across groups, this works really well. And so again, I'm showing you the questions here. How do you strike a balance between personal growth and supporting and empowering team members? That's an interesting question. All your questions are interesting and thought-provoking, and I appreciate them. These are one and the same. So I'll tell you a little anecdote about this. I was part of NASA during the Apollo program, and everybody knows what that is, the man on the moon and whatnot. And at that time, the social context of NASA was one of complete focus on getting the job done. I see a lot of that in China these days. It's reminiscent to me of those early days at NASA. And people who grew up in that social context and that environment are different than people who came later. The mindset was, we're going to, we broke rules everywhere. We're going to the moon, get out of the way. If you got a problem, call the president. And so you want to manage the social context of your workplace, because whatever you do with your employees affects their entire life. As I said before, those of us that were present during Apollo are different than people that came later. We've got this get it done mindset. And so the personal growth and empowering team members are not balanced. They are hand in hand and do them together. Interesting one. How's a leader balance authority and friendliness? I had thought about this a lot too. And I thought one way to approach this is to look at what is the definition, just typing in Google, of a friend. And here's a few parts of definition. A person who has a strong liking for, not so important, but trust, everything. So you must have this trust. Without trust, you have nothing. A person who is not an enemy and is a friend. Yes, I think as a supervisor, you need to have people see you as their friend and a person who supports. So I thought about when I was managing lots of people, what was going on here. And I think all three were in play. I think people trusted me. I took people, saw people as friends, and I supported them. And when I worked for supervisors, it wasn't every single one, but almost all was the same thing. This trust, this person as a friend. And so, and I think there's an interesting boundary issue here. The Chinese people seem to have difficulty with boundaries, personal boundaries. And I think this is a simple one. As I look back on this, with either when I was supervising people or I was being supervised, we didn't talk much about our personal lives. That was kind of in a different area. We talked about things relevant to the workplace and this closeness and vulnerability. So I was able to share things that bothered me and worried me. And in this environment of mutual respect and trust. So I think the very few things are as important in a workplace as addressing the unfortunate realities in a context of trust and mutual respect. And what's important is if you have a context of trust and mutual respect, and Sharon and the 4D tools can help you do this, you will hear the unfortunate realities and you can't react to them unless you hear. And again, be close about work and discreet about your personal life. Here's a question about the social division of labor, etc. Yeah, I think this is essential. Modern life is more and more specialized. I'm amazed every day in, for example, building this house, rebuilding our house, how many different kinds of people are involved in this. There was a time probably when one or two people could answer all the questions. Now we've got one person for the measuring the lot, another person for the grading of the lot, another person for the permit for the driveway, another person on and on and on. And I think this is okay. I think that this is essential. It's a little bit like if you, I know you don't play the same sports in China as the West, but I think you're all familiar with soccer or what's called football in most of the rest of the world. And everybody has to play their position and stay there. And I think that's really true in all teams. And I called this roles, accountability, and authority. Of the three, accountability is by far the most important. And that's a choice. Authority is something someone else might give you, and roles are someone else might assign you, but the accountability is up to you. And the definition of this is very simple. Choosing, it's a choice to answer for the consequences of what you do, you fail to do, or ask others to do. And I think what's really important, what you want to get to is accountability for success of the larger endeavor. So again, back to the sports team, as in any sport, what you want is people who are not just feeling accountable to play their position, although that's crucially important, but accountable for the success of the ultimate thing, winning the game. And so how do you get people to care about the success of the company? I think you have to incentivize them. And what that means is to share things with them when the success occurs. One of the simplest things, again, this is cost you nothing. I used to have I was always interested in team accountability. So I would have the newest person in my organization go around and interview everybody at the end of a year and ask them what they accomplished that year, and would put that into a PowerPoint, what you call a PPT presentation, and we'd watch it at lunch with the company or me personally, doesn't matter, paying for a pizza lunch or a brown bag lunch, or for you it might be a noodles lunch, and sit down together and review what we all accomplished. This is important stuff. You know, what we all tend to do is we tend to be problem solvers. So we tend to take a problem, address it, solve it, and then before we don't ever stop to enjoy the fruits of our success just in what we were able to do, we go on to the next problem. And if you want a simple summary of this whole piece, people do things for their reasons, not ours. You have to give people reasons to do things. And if you help share them in the team level results, this is very important. This is about dividing the people into the 4 dimensions. And will it anchor people? How can they become better? Look, the personality characterizations are a tool that they're very useful when you use them properly, and they create understanding and enhanced communications. And I have a statement in the workshop slides. Sharon has these again that says, do not use this tool to limit people. That's a misuse of the tool. And so any tool can be misused. A chainsaw or hammer is very useful as a tool, but it can be misused, and make sure you're using it correctly. And I really want to say that I appreciate your questions. They're thoughtful questions. They're good questions. The inquiry that you're making is really important. I respect that and appreciate that you're thinking about these things. And I think you're ready to go to the next level. I'm optimistic for you in the fact of the questions that you asked and that these are interesting to you. Another tool that Sharon can help you with, the context shifting worksheet. What that does is effectively take you through the entire workshop in about an hour, hour and a half. And Sharon can teach you how to do this yourself. And teams that get a little bit used to this, they do it themselves. The whole point of all the work I do in 4D is to help you able to help yourself. And so again, best of luck. And I just want you to think about the fact that China has recently done something that no one's ever done before. And that is to land successfully on Mars on the first attempt. Over half of the missions to Mars have been failures, and these have been carried out by the US, by the Soviet Union, and then Russia, by ESA, by Japan. And you had one small failure, but the fact that you have been able to land on Mars and have a rover come out on the first try is just exciting. It's good for me, good for the world, good for you. So I'm reminded of when I was in Beijing, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I've forgotten, I was doing a speech at China Telecom, which is used 4D quite extensively. And someone in the audience asked me, when will China catch up to the US in space? And I said, whenever it decides it's important enough to do it. So one of the great benefits of your government, and it's not without its problems as well, I'm sure, is that when you decide to do something, you can do it. The US used to be that way. I think we've kind of lost it. And you can do whatever you want, choose to do it, use the 4D system. And my best wishes to you. And I hope to be seeing you in person soon, although not clear how soon that's going to be. We will be traveling again when things are open up when we get there. And it's kind of a crazy time. And be safe. And thank you. And thank you for being such great workshop participants and the more than 10 years that I spent 2 months a year working with you. Appreciate your questions. Love you and be safe. Bye.